family, welcome back to another episode of Dusty's Keto Kitchen, and thank you for joining me today while we ponder another wonderful keto recipe. So today we are going to be doing the chicken and broccoli stir fry, and so I found a recipe online that's super simple and seems to be pretty good. And I'm pretty excited to try this out. I am making a few small adjustments from what the recipe is, and I'll kind of go over that with you throughout the recipe. And then, of course, like I started doing with the last one, at the end I'll go over what the verdict is, how it tastes, and then we'll cover the macros. So let's get cooking. So we have all of our ingredients ready to go, and so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So while we're slicing the chicken, I'm going to go ahead and do two things. So the first one is I've got some water here that I'm going to get hot and get boiling because my broccoli's frozen because I buy it in bulk because I use it for a lot of things. So I'm going to steam it so that way it warms it, but I don't want to overcook it. So we're just going to steam it to basically get it thawed out. So I'm going to get that going. The second thing, I'm also going to turn the pan on so we can get hot and ready for the chicken. So now to cook the chicken, we're going to drizzle the pan. It's a 12-inch skillet. We're going to drizzle the pan with a little bit of olive oil, just so that way it helps keep the chicken from sticking. And so we're going to turn the pan up to about a medium-high heat. Alright, so while the broccoli is doing its thing and the pan's getting hot, we're going to go ahead and slice our chicken. Now, these chicken breasts are really large, so like this really big one, I'm going to cut in half, and then I'm going to slice it this way, thin slices. So I'm looking for about 1-inch squares approximately. And these other two, I'll probably leave them as is and just slice them thin this way. It's just a really large chicken breast. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with that. Okay, so the pan's hot, and so we've got our chicken cut up. I've got about 1.5 pounds, just over 1.5 pounds of sliced chicken. And like I said, they're just cut in strips, and they're going to go in the pan. In the pan, I'm also going to be adding 2 teaspoons of ginger, and then 2 cloves of chopped garlic. Now we've had the chicken going for a couple of minutes, so we're going to go ahead and add 3/4 of a cup of chicken broth. Three tablespoons of soy sauce, and this is a half tablespoon because I can't find my 1 tablespoon, so 6 of these bad boys. Now this recipe actually calls for 2 tablespoons of sugar, but I'm going to eliminate as much carbs as I possibly can. So I'm going to be using 1 tablespoon of Splenda. Well, we'll do a tablespoon and a half because I know Splenda is a little sweeter than regular sugar, so I want to cut that down just a little bit. And then I'm going to stir this up. I'm going to let this simmer for about 5 minutes, covered. Now to get prepared for the sauce, we're using another 1/4 cup of chicken broth. And then the recipe calls for cornstarch, but guess what? We're not using cornstarch. So again, eliminating carbs. I'm replacing the cornstarch with xanthan gum, which can be purchased at, I'm pretty sure, any major store. It's available. You can also replace soy sauce for liquid aminos, which pretty much tastes exactly the same. Really the difference is the carb count. It has like half the amount of carbs that the soy sauce does. I don't really like wasting, so I'm not going to go buy amino acids. As far as the xanthan gum, it's about the same as far as cornstarch. So, and actually this is even better than cornstarch as far as thickening is concerned. So this requires 2 teaspoons. So I'm going to start with 1 teaspoon and see if it thickens up enough, and then we'll go from there. If we need to add more, we can add more. So I think I'm going to go ahead and add the other tablespoon of the xanthan gum. That's much better. I'm going to go ahead and add the broccoli. Let that simmer for just a couple minutes, and then we'll be ready to eat. Okay, so time for the final verdict. So here's our chicken broccoli, and it smells wonderful. So here we go. So I was a little worried how the Splenda was going to be instead of the sugar, just because of the sweetness difference, and I'm glad I kind of held back on the Splenda a little bit. because it's perfect. I wish it was a little saltier, but it's really, really, really good. And this was really, 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 really easy. The hardest part literally was slicing the chicken. Everything else it's a one-pan dish and a cutting board, and that's literally it. You cut the chicken, and then I mean, I didn't really even need to thaw the broccoli. I could have just thrown it in there while it was finishing up the chicken, and it would have been fine too. So I could have saved myself a pan with steaming the broccoli. So I'm gonna enjoy this. I'll be back to finish talking about it and go over the macros, and I'll see you guys in a minute. Okay, so final verdict. So again, we're coming back to the chicken broccoli stir fry. And so super good recipe, super simple recipe. The total video time frame is only like 22 minutes, I think, and that was from start to finish. And that wasn't pre-prepping anything. I mean, everything I did was on the videos. So super simple. From the recipe that'll be posted in the description, I made 2 changes. One, instead of using sugar, I used Splenda. Don't forget, if you do use Splenda versus sugar, make sure you cut back a little bit, because Splenda does tend to be sweeter than regular sugar. And then the other change I made was I used xanthan gum instead of cornstarch. The reason I changed those 2 things out is because of, I wanted to limit as much carbs as possible with anything that I make. Because xanthan gum has 0 calories in it. It's made from a plant, right? And then sugar has a ton of carbohydrates in it. And so instead of using 2 tablespoons of regular sugar, I used 1.5 tablespoons of Splenda. So, and then another one, you can even cut back even a little further, but with the amount that we used, it's really not that much. You're talking 3 carbs versus maybe 1.5 carbs. So swapping amino acids instead of using the soy sauce. Not amino acids, I'm sorry, liquid aminos. So they're both soy products. One is just processed differently, looks exactly the same and tastes exactly the same as soy sauce. It's just a different process which allows less carbohydrates. So yeah, other than that, it was delicious. Definitely recommend it. Kind of go over to the macros. We got 441 calories per serving. Net carbs were 3. I told you it was super low with the changes that I made per serving. And then protein is really high. So if you're looking at wanting a high protein dish, well, this is one way to do it. It's 79 grams of protein per serving. Pretty damn amazing. And then last but not least, fat was at 13. Fat super low. So eating this is awesome. It's super, on the healthy side, on the lean side, which in keto isn't always the best thing, especially considering we are wanting to have 75% of our caloric intake being from fat. So make sure if this is a dish that you make that you're supplementing the rest of your fat throughout the rest of your day. So I have other ways to do that, like my keto fat bombs, which have the coconut oil, which is healthy oils, avocados, stuff like that. Just got to get creative. But in the meantime, thanks for watching another episode of Dusty's Keto Kitchen, and I'll see you on the next one. Have a good night.